Hi, everyone. How are you doing this morning? I'm Tara. I'm the lead PA of the Nexus team, and I'm here today with Dr. Hamilton, who is the medical director of Telemedica and also leads the diagnosis team at Telemedica. We're coming to you today to talk about the value of Nexus letters and also to provide some clarification on a change that Telemedica has recently made and to answer some common questions that we've received about the change in service or the change in documentation that you're receiving from Telemedica and why we've made this change. So we wanted you to hear it from us first and not trickle down through various other sources or going through several steps in order to get the answers to your questions. And so we wanted to come on today to talk a little bit more in detail about that. So I wanted to start with talking about the differences between the mental health and medicine teams. Telemedica provides 3 teams of service right now: mental health, diagnosis, and Nexus teams. Now, both Dr. Hamilton's diagnosis team and our Nexus team are on the medicine side of things. So the difference between mental health and medicine is very, very large. The requirements for documentation and what will be successful and help you with your claim is very different between those 2 teams as well. So this is where a lot of confusion happens. Because the mental health team, they see you talk to them, they may provide a diagnosis, they provide a Nexus statement, and your package is good to go to submit. Medical, it's a lot more complicated. These connections are more complicated and they are much more involved, which is why having a separate Nexus letter is very important. And so knowing that there's a difference between the teams is one thing that's really important, because you're getting the same level of service across all teams. So level of service I wanted to kind of define as you're getting support documentation for your VA disability claim that has value, that is accurate, that has an independent medical opinion. That is what you're getting no matter which service you're utilizing with Telemedica. The actual physical document you're receiving can look very different only because of the nature of the different services, medical versus mental health. And so that's where I think a lot of people are getting caught up in is, why is this sufficient? Why is that not sufficient? And where there's some differences. So we're going to go through a little bit of that, but I wanted to turn it over to Dr. Hamilton for a little bit to talk a little bit about the changes with the diagnosis documents.
So I'm the medical director for the medical side of Telemedica, and that encompasses the sort of physical aspects of medicine, including Tara and her Nexus letter team. I am not involved in the psychiatry side, and they have their own medical director and their own team. Now, under the umbrella of Telemedica, I'm in contact with them. So we have a discourse and we're on the same team, but we play different positions. I guess is the best way of saying that. So think of the mental health, the psychiatry, psychology portion as a completely different arm than what we're talking about today in the physical health on the medical diagnostic side, the medical Nexus letter side. And one of the decisions that we came to as a group, and we did not come to it lightly, we put a lot of thought into it, is the removal of the Nexus statement from the diagnostic portion of our work. The focus we wanted to be on the importance of the Nexus letter. The Nexus statement was simply that. It was a statement commenting on whether we thought the condition was likely, as likely, less than likely related to medical, the medical condition related to service. And that was on review of the documentation, the medical records. However, what it is not, and this is incredibly important, is the deep dive into the research and the literature that Tara and her team do with the Nexus letter that supports not only the connection between the diagnosis and military service, but gives objective credence to that claim. So we decided to remove those two. We wanted to make sure that on both the diagnostic side and the Nexus letter side, that we were maintaining an independent professional medical opinion. And that I can't understate. As medical professionals, we needed to maintain independence and objectivity that strengthens our diagnosis, it strengthens our Nexus letter, it strengthens our credibility, and ultimately it strengthens the ability of current and future veterans to pursue disability claims. And we wanted to make sure that we were going about it in a way that was the most objective way possible. And the most objective way possible is to separate the person who does the diagnosis from the person who writes the Nexus letter. We don't want there to be any third-party review that looks in and says, well, this provider was doing the diagnosis and also doing the Nexus letter. It looks like they're incentivizing themselves to do both. We don't want any of that. We want to make sure that whoever's doing the diagnosis is separate from who's doing the Nexus letter. I also want to make sure that we're clear that by removing the Nexus statement, we had encountered a lot of problems in the fact that we would write simply, we think that this condition, take migraines, for example, is at least as likely as not related to the patient's military service. And this was based on our review of the documentation, minus all the literature that Tara and her team would support. Mm-hmm. What we were finding is that Tara and her team would get to the veteran's case, they would do the review, they'd do the deep dive, and they'd realize that, well, actually, it is connected to the medical service, but as a secondary process. So by my statement, I had actually painted Tara and her team into a corner that wasn't really accurate. Then we were backtracking, and it was causing more problems than it was helping. And we felt like we were doing a disservice to the veterans by having that statement in the medical diagnosis. And we wanted to make sure that we were encouraging the veteran patients to pursue the Nexus letter because it's just a stronger, better statement. It's more objective, it's more detailed, and it's going to increase the chance that you get a rating or you get a rating increase in your disability. And we felt like, I know I'm going on and on, we really felt like that was in the best interest of the veteran. Tara, am I missing anything?
No, the only thing I wanted to highlight is that we are experts in our field in a very different way. We are experts when it comes to not we as the Nexus team, we as the medical providers of Telemedica, the diagnosis team and the Nexus team, all of us together are experts in our field when it comes to relating to VA disability service, because the value that Dr. Hamilton's diagnosis team provides, I think, is missed at times because it's not just another telemedicine service. It's not just, oh, I'm on a video conference with my doctor or someone else's doctor, another company, whatever. It's not the same apples to apples that we're talking about. His team is definitely an expert. They're experts at what they do in not only just providing a diagnosis and providing an independent medical evaluation on the medical side, but also knowing enough about the VA disability claim service. They also understand how important it is to reflect how your conditions are impacting your life, which is not part of normal medical practice. You don't go to your doctor and find in their medical records and their medical notes that they spend a lot of time talking about the impact of these conditions on your life, which is where Dr. Hamilton's team actually does a huge service to the veteran, because if it's not documented and you go in for your C&P exam and you're reporting some of this, or you forget it, or you're not medical, you don't know the right questions or to answer, the C&P examiner may not ask you all of the very detailed questions that Dr. Hamilton's team does. So sometimes what is missing is not just the actual diagnosis part, because that is definitely a value, or an updated diagnosis saying, hey, this condition is still going on. They're also providing that extra piece of understanding that their evaluation is relating to your VA disability claim. And so talking a little bit more about impact is important for your claim. And so they provide a lot of that information and document that for you, because that way they're able to, in a very safe, non-stressed environment, because CP exams are stressful. Don't get me wrong, they're very stressful. And in that heat of the moment stress, you may not think of everything you want to tell that provider. They may rush you through. So this environment that Dr. Hamilton's team provides is a safe space for you to be able to really prepare and talk about your condition in entirety. You're not on a time clock to where you're 10 minutes, your doctor's moving on to the next person. That's the value of what we're providing. And so clouding that with a Nexus statement that's really not specific and not helpful, really, I just think it provides documentation that's a filler, and it's not helpful to you. So we don't want anything that's not helpful to you. That's our point of things. And on a Nexus side, we see all the time clients who've gotten Nexus letters, or quote Nexus letters, from their providers, their treating providers, and where the doctor would write on their letterhead, hey, I'm the treating provider of veteran so-and-so, and these are the conditions that I'm treating, and I really feel, it's my medical opinion, that they are connected to service, and sign the document. And the VA sometimes will take that information and say, well, there's no rationale, there's no reason, there's nothing behind that statement. And that's sort of what we were finding the Nexus statement as doing, that there was not enough behind it to do things. And so this is why the major change happens. You're not getting less value. You're not getting less support. You're getting the same level of support, just more accurate and more concise, to actually only information that's going to help you in your claim. And that's important.
Well, and to that end, not only do we want to discuss the impact on the veteran's life, both personal and professional, in our history and physical examination, we're also in really close direct contact with the Nexus letter team. Tara and I talk regularly, and I have a real-time feedback from her and her team, like, hey, listen, one of the things that we're seeing on the Nexus letters is this, and it's missing in the diagnosis, and we need you to be asking these questions. So we have a very immediate communication that has a relationship, allows us to benefit the patient being under the same umbrella. So I think that's another value added, is that we're on the same team, and we get feedback regularly. Hey, this is really working well. I'm glad you're asking these questions. This is something that's important. Or what we need to add, and be asking these questions of the veterans as well. Again, just improving the communication between our teams, improving the product for the veteran, but also maintaining our independence and our objectivity as medical professionals.
Now, switching a little bit and tying into that, switching a little bit over to Nexus letters themselves, there's a large process that goes into a Nexus letter, and having, beyond the bias part, having the same provider go through both processes definitely would slow down the process for both teams. And that's part of the reason why we don't do that. We want people to be experts in their lane, stay in their lane, be focused on their process, and not intermingle both for bias. But this way we can actually provide a separate service that is not tied to your time frame of diagnosis, that it is a completely separate entity, and the provider has all of the information that they need to review. And there's a lot of information to review, because there's a lot of components that they look at when it comes to determining, do I have evidence of a nexus? Is this something I can say, at least as likely as not, could be? And like I said before, sometimes this information is not in your regular medical documents, and we may have to go back and forth with the veteran asking these questions. And the nice thing about the communication piece with Dr. Hamilton's team is that if we're finding that certain questions are helpful to us, and it doesn't impede their independent medical opinion, because they're not determining if there's a nexus. We're not determining if there's a nexus as far as creating something. We're looking at the evidence to see if it's there. There are definitely some questions about medical history that are very helpful for us on the Nexus side, that if they are being seen by Dr. Hamilton's team, it could be helpful, like migraines, like he talked about, frequency. Sometimes, for some reason, we're not finding in regular medical documents that the frequency of your migraines are documented. Many of you veterans are using Migraine Buddy to document your headaches. And so we thought that that would be a helpful piece to be added into the letters, to say, hey, if you ask the question about how frequent, and make sure you're documenting how frequent a headache is, that's really helpful to the Nexus team, because that information can really help us piece together a real-time understanding of their condition. And it really does help if their medical evidence from their neurologist or medical doctors or wherever their evidence is coming from may not contain all of that information, and it is part of it, a patient history. So it's not creating a nexus as much as it is helping the Nexus team get all of the information to understand your condition, which is what's important. We like to have all the information so that we know, one, how is your condition, and then how does it relate to service? Moving into the value of the Nexus letter, like Dr. Hamilton was saying earlier, Nexus letters, what they are, just in case some of you are not aware of really what we're talking about, they plain and simple provide a medical connection to service, whether it's direct or secondary to another condition. And I know I've talked a little bit about this on another video, but I think it's very important key points to kind of really make sure that it's understood. What we provide, like he was saying, is we provide medical-based evidence to back that up. We don't just provide an opinion saying, yes, it is, we think it's service connected, because the VA has often needed more information than that, saying, okay, well, where's the rationale? Where is your thought process? And providing our thought process can be helpful as a medical provider. However, it doesn't always provide all the information needed, because most of these connections live in an area of research that is not part of common medical practice, because we're not treating patients with this information. What we're doing is making an having an understanding of the complexities, the origin of the condition. So where did it come from, and how does it interact with other conditions? That's where Nexus letters and where our team, spends most of their time. Medical doctors and your private physicians, the CMP examiners, people who are treating you or evaluating you for treatment, they live in the realm of practicing medicine to where they need information that's helpful for treatment and prevention of disease. So there's just two different aspects of medicine that don't intertwine at real time. So things that are in research right now may not come into clinical practice for many years or decades. So those doctors are not learning that as part of clinical practice, because it doesn't help treat their patients. It doesn't help save their lives. It doesn't help improve their lives. This is why it's helpful for us to use a Nexus letter, because what we do is take that research. We take that research and we put it in our document and say, okay, veteran Smith has this condition. We think it's secondary to his other service-connected condition, and this is how it impacts his life, and this is why we think that. And here's the medical evidence that backs that up. Here is where the literature shows how these dots are connected, how these breadcrumbs lead from one place to the other. And we're doing it so that it's legitimate medical evidence for your claim. And that deep dive and that detail is not something that really can be comprised in a Nexus statement. Our documents are anywhere from 2 to 6 pages, sometimes a little longer. We've seen a lot of other companies doing a variety of different level of documents, whether it's the same kind of couple pages or even longer ones. But the reality is we don't provide you fluff. We provide you with important evidence and information to support your claim, so that when you go to the VA and you're talking to them about your condition, that you have at least that evidence to show the rater to say, look, I think it's connected. This medical professional thinks it's connected, and here's why, in medical terms, why they think it's connected, and the evidence behind it, as well as if there's any VA case laws, case studies that could support that we're not making this connection up. This is not something that it doesn't exist anywhere else, that it does exist, and the VA has recognized this. And so we make that as more of a full package. It's almost like a nice little package tied in a bow. And so I got a question I wanted to touch base on, because we get this question all the time. So there's a question that was posed: can I just go to the VA with just a diagnosis and no Nexus letter? Yes, of course, you can go to the VA with that. A lot of times that if it is something they find is service connected, they will award it. And sometimes they don't. And if they don't, a Nexus letter is what can be helpful. So a Nexus letter is not a necessary document. It is an enhancement. It is a tool that you can use, that you have elected to use when you contract with us, that you've elected to use in order to enhance your claim. in order to provide extra support and documentation. So none of these documents are necessary for a connection. The VA will evaluate you, have a C&P exam, and determine if they feel that it's service connected. It's like I said, sometimes these connections can be vague and they're not in the realm of practicing medicine where you're treating clients and patients. And so that can be somewhere where you get a sticking point where the VA doesn't see the connection clearly. And this is where in medical nexus letters help, because the medical providers, such as myself and my team, will spell that out for them. They will say, this is how we feel it's connected.
Yeah, and we really want we want to maximize all of our veterans' chances of getting a disability rating and or an increased disability rating. And we think that by doing that is, the services that we're offering. So certainly you can go to the VA with just a diagnosis. That's completely okay. We just want to be able to provide you with the best opportunity to both get awarded the disability or get awarded the increase in your disability rating. So that's what we want to do, is just to give you the best opportunity.
And an important thing to keep in mind is when we're talking about these types of things, nothing is guaranteed. We do not make the VA decision. We are not the raters. We are not affiliated with the VA in that way. We are independent, providing an independent opinion. So if it is our independent opinion that your particular situation is service connected, that we feel that way, and we would be glad to provide you this documentation. But if we evaluate it and we don't feel that there's enough evidence, or we don't see the connection or something to that nature, we won't provide you a document. We are not in the business of charging veterans to produce a document just for the sake of producing documents. This is why our providers are independent. This is why there is no requirement, quota, there's no expectation. This is why we, on the Nexus team, why we evaluate the case first and see what evidence is there before we even move forward, before we even ask you more detailed questions if we're missing items for a potential letter. We like to make sure that we evaluate if there's a possibility that we feel that this could be connected. So that is an important key point, that we remain independent, that we're not incentivized one way or another to provide you a document. Our goal is to provide you a document if a document is necessary, or if a document would be potentially helpful for your claim.
And the same is true on the diagnostic side. Like, we're not incentivized one way or the other to provide a diagnosis. If the veteran meets the particular criteria that we know establishes the diagnosis, then the diagnosis will be made. And if not, then it's not made, and it's just an objective criteria that we have in place. So that holds true for the medical side as well as the Nexus letter side.
Mm-hmm. It's important that we maintain our integrity, and we maintain our professionalism, and we maintain, like I said, that independent opinion, because for your claim, the VA is going to be looking for credibility. And so we maintain our credibility in a lot of these practices that may not seem intuitively like they make sense. But like I said in the beginning, that the medical team and the mental health team are very, very different in functionality, because there are so many more options and choices and different ways that things connect, that it's just not as simple and clear cut as it appears to be with a lot of the mental health situations. We do have some time for some questions. And so if you've got some questions, please provide those. We're going to take a look through and try to answer some of those right now with the time that we have left. Dr. Hamilton, I think you have a question. You're able to see the comments in the chat section.
The feedback that I was referring to is the direct feedback that we get from Tara and her team about what they're seeing in terms of the information that we're providing them in the diagnosis. So the diagnosis is the diagnosis, but the questions throughout, like she mentioned, the frequency of migraines, those types of things would be the feedback where she said, hey, look, when you put in that the veteran has 5 headaches a month and they last anywhere from 4 to 6 hours at a time, that is incredibly beneficial to us in understanding the impact it has going forward. That's the feedback that I was referring to, is the conversation between the medical diagnostic team and the Nexus letter writing team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like I was saying, like we were just saying, we are independent medical providers, professional. We maintain our integrity as providers, medical providers, and we're not in the business of making medical connections. We don't make the connections. We look and evaluate. The veteran feels a condition is service connected. They tell us, "Hey, I think my knee is service connected. Can you take a look at that?" That's what we do. And the same thing with the medical team. We just highlight the fact that this is not just another telemedicine service that you go and you get seen for and you get treatment for. This is a kind of niche, sort of specific team that provides a service that it's not common practice for some of the information to be placed in there, because your doctor or the person you see when you go to, get seen at an urgent care over the teleconference or telemedicine, is they're looking to treat you. They're looking to figure out, okay, you're coming to me with an ailment. I have a sore throat. They're coming to figure out what's causing it. Is it dangerous? And can I treat this and make this better for you? Whereas the diagnosis team with Telemedica, they're looking at VA disability situations. They're going, okay, you have a lot of symptoms. Do you meet criteria for this diagnosis, which is very similar to what you would see if you went to an urgent care or anywhere else for a teleconference. But then they go the extra step of understanding that VA disability is important to understand how the impact on your life. And so they understand those key questions can help your claim, and not just a diagnosis, because yes, you can go anywhere for a diagnosis. You can go in, see your doctor, you can see any medical provider who can evaluate you to see if you have that medical diagnosis to provide, but this is the additional value to their team.
And Tara's certainly not telling us what questions to ask. She's simply kind of helping guide us as to these questions are helpful, or can you ask more questions around this? Just in the same way that a cardiologist would ask the emergency physician, hey, when did the patient last take his or her aspirin? Or when did the patient last get a stress test? These are questions that the emergency physician can ask that would be beneficial to the cardiologist, just in the same way that I can ask these questions that can benefit Tara and her team. But again, objective questions that the veteran patient can answer, but can be really beneficial. If I don't know that those questions are beneficial, I might not know to ask them. And that's where the feedback and the communication between our teams really does help the veteran in the long run.
And a lot of the VA provides, they do fill out a DBQ, or disability questionnaire form, if you're not familiar with that term. And a lot of that is a lot of the input is also based off of things like that. What is your C&P exam going to look like? What questions should they be asking? They may not always ask the questions, but we kind of want to cover everything for the VA, that they have everything that they need in order to rate your condition. So it's about providing them the evidence in a way that they can see, clearly understand, and evaluate your condition. And so that's the biggest part of why going to the VA with just a diagnosis and not a Nexus letter and not having this information. Yes, can you get it service connected? Of course, people do it every day. But sometimes you need a little extra evidence, and this is what we provide, that extra independent evidence to say, here, let me lay it out for the VA as to what your situation is, and make it easy for them to find, make it easy for them to see and read, and make sure that they have a clear picture of your condition, because that's the important part. They need to have a clear understanding of what your condition is, how it impacts your life, as well as how is it connected to service. And so part of what we do organizes that for them. We provide that information nicely in a nice clean package for them to be able to evaluate. But like I said, if it's not there, if the information's not there, then it's not there. And that's sort of where where we come into play when it comes to being independent and providing a service. Are there any other questions that we might be able to answer for you? Let's see. Oh, here we go. We've got one. What happened if my Nexus letter is denied? So at our Nexus team providers, we stand behind our documents. If we feel your condition is service connected, we stand behind that. And sometimes you may need to take it to another level. A higher level review is the next step. What that is no new medical evidence is provided, and a senior rater evaluates your case and looks to see if there was an error made or something missed or something overlooked, not evaluated properly. And it gives you a chance to talk to them about your condition and how how it impacts you. A lot of times you can elect to have the rater contact you. And they evaluate it. That's not providing any additional evidence. If that doesn't work, you get a denial and you want an evaluation for a supplemental claim, we provide those free of charge. If we wrote your letter, we stand behind your letter. That is the point of my comment, that if we see a denial letter and there is something that we can argue against or clarify, because there's a lot of times where I've gotten denial letters where the reason is, we're not sure if she's reviewed all the evidence for your file. And I know I have, but I didn't spell it out clearly enough. A supplemental document will be provided, an amendment or a response document to say, this was an error. I did review X, Y, and Z documents in my decision to provide this positive statement for this veteran. And that gets submitted with a supplemental claim. If new research needs to be added into it, if they seem to be unclear about the connection, we sometimes edit and make adjustments to the document. It just depends on the specific denial that you've received. As to if we can assist. But if we can assist, if it's something that we go, this is something that if I'd have known, I could have put this in my original letter because it's just a clarification. It's something that they just didn't seem to get. I didn't do a good job of clarifying this aspect of my letter. That is what those supplemental claims help. Now, what we cannot do is if the denial letter is asking for objective medical evidence. For instance, they're looking for either service treatment records. They're looking for documentation of your medical visits from X year to X year of treatment of this condition. We can't provide a document for that because we didn't see you during that time. That's not something that we can attest to without actually having that documentation. So there are times that the VA is requesting information or saying, we're denying this claim because we think we need this objective medical evidence. We only see you have one. I'm trying to give some easy examples here. I see that you were diagnosed at this time, but the diagnosis is different. We need to see medical documentation that you were seen for this knee strain after service before your arthritis developed. If you don't have that documentation, there's not much an opinion letter is going to help with that because the VA is asking for objective documentation. If the VA says, oh, well, you're asking for an increase in migraines, and I see where this is coming into play, but you haven't seen a neurologist, or we haven't had advanced imaging, or you've only had 2 visits. We're not sure that is enough to establish that this is a permanent worsening of your condition. We cannot provide that evidence because a Nexus opinion is not going to help in that condition. They're looking for objective evidence. So there are times that we cannot do anything about a denial, but if we can, we're more than happy to do so. And reaching out to customer service, either through your coach if you're with VA Claims Insider, or if you're with Telemedica and as a separate client, and you can reach out to customer service. Anybody can, any client of Telemedica can, whether you're associated with VA Claims Insider or not. Reach out to customer service and they can get you in touch with the provider who did your letter. They can get them, making sure that you upload the letter into your folder. That way the provider can take a look at that and get back to you on what the next step they can provide for you. I hope that makes sense. I know it can be a complicated situation with the VA, and I know a lot of times that some people get a denial and they need to go to the VA Board of Appeals, and that's also sometimes a necessary option. But like I said, when we write a document, we stand behind it. We believe your case. We believe our opinion, and that's the right thing to do when it comes to taking care of you as a veteran. Is if there is a miscommunication with the VA, we'd be more than happy to make that clarification. Okay, this question is relating to I believe the Nexus team. I'm not sure about the Diagnosis team, if this is something applicable. So the question is that, why do I need to pay $100 before I get billed? Telemedica provides services on the front end of the situation of a condition, especially for the Nexus team, to where they are providing the veteran with a lot of services that they're seeing behind the scenes. So a lot of our customer service team, a lot of our assistance with getting all the information the provider needs. So prior to getting to the provider, there's a lot that happens. And this, from my understanding, this is more of an administrative question, not more of like a medical question, but my understanding is all of those moving parts behind the scenes is where that comes from. And I know that there are people who are evaluating your case. There is my assistant is evaluating everybody's case to make sure that they have the proper documentation for the provider. If they're missing documentation, what's helpful is that she schedules appointments, a quick touch just to make sure that you understand what we need and why we need it, to make sure that the provider gets all the documents that they need to review your case for a Nexus. And we want to streamline this. The reason they provide this service is because it makes things faster. It makes it faster for you to get in front of a provider, and it makes it faster for you to get your documentation, the turnaround time. If we cut that service out, and the provider immediately got your documents and you're missing something, then that's communication back and forth with the provider. And it could take several days to weeks in order to get the information that the provider needs and get them going on your case and on your documents. Our goal is to make sure that you have everything there for the provider. And if you had any additional questions, then you have some support staff there for you, because the provider only does the document. We are not the experts behind the scenes on filing. We're not the experts on administratively and what do you need to do and taking care of all of those issues. So a lot of that is what that charge is, I think, comprised of. So the medicine team, the medicine team, at least the Nexus team side, the provider only deals with the document. They want to focus on what's important to you, which is that document.
And that's my understanding too, because it frees up the providers to focus on the Nexus letter. And yes, there are administrative expenses that are incurred, that are behind the scenes, that are just real expenses that benefits us as providers, and as a byproduct benefits the veterans as well, allowing us to produce a more efficient, thorough document in a better time frame.
Mm-hmm. Give it just a minute or two while we wait to see if there are any other additional questions. I'd like to just sort of start wrapping things up and kind of just go over the highlights, the key points for anybody who might have missed the beginning of the stream, so that you don't have to go back through the whole thing. And so for those of you who might have joined us partway through, we're here today talking about the value of the Nexus letter, but also talking about the diagnosis team and some of the changes that we have made. There are varying differences between the mental health team and the medicine teams in what document you provide, but no matter what, the end of the day, the key take-home message is that you're getting a document from Telemedica, you're getting a quality document that is supportive of your claim. And it may look different between the teams, but that is something that is done on purpose. We want to only provide you a document that's going to be helpful. We don't cookie cutter documents. We don't want it all to look the same, because it's not all the same thing. It doesn't help. One size doesn't fit all. And we find that between the different teams as well. And so we tailor each team to meet the needs of the veteran, to meet the needs of what is most helpful for their claim. And that's the end of the day, the important thing to remember. And that, yes, we've made a change with the diagnosis team, but we did not make a change in the value of what you're getting. They are experts at not only diagnosing, because they're medical professionals, but also understanding the importance of how the impact of your condition relies on in your case relies on this. And so when you provide that document to the VA, you're not just relying on yourself to report that in the heat of the moment of your C&P exam to make sure that that C&P examiner documented everything that you said. You may have a lot to say, and what if they didn't document everything? And so yes, a personal statement can help in a lot of cases, and I do recommend a personal statement for most every claim, because hearing it from you is very helpful, but making sure that it's clear, concise, and in a way that the rater can quickly look at your case and evaluate with all the evidence that they need in a concise way. That's what the value of our services provide. And the value of the Nexus letter really is that evidence-based medicine that stands behind your document. It's not just that medical provider saying, hey, I've got credentials, I've got a license, I've been trained for years in these things, and I feel that this is connected for this reason. It's also, I'm not the only one. All of these research teams do. they feel the same way, because they're experts in finding out the connection and finding out how one condition impacts another. And that's what they do. These research teams designate their lives to. And so we just bring them into the conversation. We just bring them into the mix of medicine, because it's not in common practice. And so that's what you're getting with the services with Telemedica, between the Nexus, the diagnosis team. So we don't have any other questions for right now. I really hope that we provided you some answers. I really hope that we provided you some quality content and some clarification on what services and how we provide and do things here at Telemedica. But if there are still any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Customer service can forward any question to us. We can help with any clarification. If you have, like I said, a coach with VA Claims Insider and you even go through them, they have access to create a ticket in Telemedica to ask these questions. So any way or shape or form you need to get us questions, we have more than enough team members to try to gather that information. And if it's enough of the same question, this is where these videos come into play. When we get a lot of people asking the same questions, we go, you know what, I think it's time for us to go live and go do this. And so that's why we're here today. And this is why we'll be here in the future, trying to answer your questions and help you. This is a very confusing situation when it comes to VA with VA disability claims, because I don't think it's accurately presented to you as what your options are and how this works. I think you're really leading yourself a lot of the times when it comes to the VA with this. And so hopefully we can help, and we're more than willing to evaluate your case to see if there is a connection, if you feel there is one. So reach out and get in touch with Dr. Hamilton's team, reach out and get in touch with our team. We'd be more than happy to look at your case.
Awesome. And I would echo everything that she just said. Ultimately, our goal is to provide objective opinions, both from the medical diagnostic side and the Nexus letter side, that adds value to our veteran patients, because we want to make sure that when you're taking our documents to the VA, that the credibility is sound, solid, and that you know you've got a great work product that's going to give you the best chance possible for a disability.
Oh, we just have one question pop up. I guess we can do one more question. Let's see what that question is. Oh, okay. Do I need to be with VA Claims Insider to get a Nexus letter from you? The answer is no. VA Claims Insider does refer Telemedica clients, and there are situations where we have clients that are private clients. Telemedica does have private clients, if you want to call it, so to speak, private clients. I use that term in a way of differentiating contracted with another organization. So yes, we do have contracts with VA Claims Insider, but no, you can reach out through Telemedica independently in order to have evaluation from any of our 3 team services. Customer service is always available. You can go to their website at I think, I don't know if we can post that up there, because sometimes just saying it doesn't really help, and I'm not sure if it's up there, but if you have further questions, Telemedica, you can go to their website. You can call them. I think there's even a text box on their website that one of the customer service teams can help you out there. And oh, there we go. I think that's up there. Yep. Perfect. Sometimes it's easier to see than just to say. So yes, you can get in touch with any of our teams, mental health, diagnosis, or Nexus teams, independently of VA Claims Insider, if that's what you so choose. We are reachable both of those ways.
Yes, indeed.
All right. I think that's about it for today. Thank you all so much for joining us, and I really, like I said, hope we provided you some quality information and clarification on some of these confusing situations and items. So, thank you, Dr. Hamilton, for joining us today.
Thanks, Tara, for letting me be here.
All right, and we'll see you all next time we do a video. All right, take care, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.